Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Wellness Wednesdays with me, Yehudis Schamroth, nurse anesthetist of 40 years. And I hate to say that, makes me old, makes me seem old. Over 10 years time ago, I went back to school and became a practitioner of Chinese medicine. So I'm the integrative practitioner, the nurse that does acupuncture and so on in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel. Thank you for joining. And if you have never joined us before, I do all kinds of interviews with interesting people on all topics, health and wellness related. Sometimes I speak on my own. I don't have a guest, but mostly I try to get people who are very interesting. We talk about every issue from mental health to physical health to something. Today we're talking about something so interesting about visual health. We've done one on visual health before, of what herbs and to take and what foods to eat and things, which you can review on my YouTube channel. And that is RBS Acupuncture YouTube channel. I don't even think I have it up here, but I'll put it up there later. If you ever want to reach me and talk to me for a free consultation on anything, you can write to me at RBS Acupuncture or go to my website. My website is rbsacupuncture.com. Today's show is on RBS Acupuncture page on Facebook. I also have that YouTube channel. So if anybody wants me to put the link down below, I will do that. And also, please write to me and ask me what topics you'd like to hear about. I do have about 2 years worth of interviews with people of all kinds of interesting things. Like I said, we've spoken about organic foods, whether to eat them or not. What do we do if we have fatty liver disease? What do we do about the updates with COVID now? I know we're not talking about that anymore, but we really do need to keep our immune systems built up pretty well. So there's a lot of different topics I think you would enjoy. And today's topic, though, is very interesting. I need to change my screen a bit so we can share the screen, which is blinking and for mine. I don't know why, but hope it's not blinking for you. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Irlen syndrome. Okay, have you ever heard of it? Because it was something that most people don't know about. It is a visual issue, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your vision. It means there's something wrong with the way your brain processes vision in the back of your brain. So if anybody's got all kinds of things that I'll enumerate here, tiredness and blurry vision and things, kids with learning disabilities, a lot of people can be tested for this. And it turns out they don't really maybe have learning disabilities, but they're not seeing properly. And it's not a prescription glass thing. It's a light sensitivity thing, which I'm going to describe to you. My guest is Shoshana Shamberg. And she'll be joining us later by video, a recorded video. And I want to give her details on there too, because she is a diagnostician. Shoshana Shamberg has a master's degree, and she's also an occupational therapist of many years. She's well known all throughout America for teaching accessibility for people, for people who are handicapped, how to go into a kitchen in a home and make it totally accessible to people. I didn't spell Irlen right here. I'm sorry, Shoshana, Irlen. I have it spelled right everywhere else. So anyway, if you need a diagnostician in the Baltimore, Washington area, Shoshana, she's doing that pretty much exclusively now. She's retired from being her amazing occupational therapy career. I'm sure they really miss her. But in any case, there are people all over the world, and you can go to irlen.com. And you'll see in a minute why you might want to try that, because once you hear this presentation, you might do some thinking about how you would like to test yourself or one of your kids to see if this is what they have, and maybe they don't have a learning disability at all, or maybe they don't have any other behavior issues at all. Maybe it's just possibly the way the brain is processing or not processing correctly. So let me get to my slideshow here. And okay, Irlen syndrome. Okay, first of all, I'm going to introduce Shoshana later because she is going to come on later. But first, let's talk about Irlen syndrome. There's a Dr. Irlen who's discovered it, and there's another person named Miras also. So it's sometimes called Miras-Irlen syndrome. It's called a scotopic sensitivity syndrome, SSS, or a visual stress syndrome. And it is not an optical impairment. It is not an eye disease, and it is not an eye problem. When you get a pair of glasses that help you with this, it shades out different wavelengths of light and helps people see better and read better and focus better by just simply putting a colored overlay on the paper that they're reading, or using glasses of the color, similar to something like this. This is my plastic folder for my notes and for my patient files. This plastic can be put over a white paper, and it clears things up for so many people, and you have to be diagnosed with it though. But if you have anything from, the print looking different on the page to you, or the environment looks different, everybody else is saying it looks one way, but you think it looks another. If you have a kid with slow or very inefficient reading, poor comprehension, poor concentration, very bad eye strain, fatigue and headaches, of course, everybody probably would run to get their eyes checked first, which is really the right thing to do. Obviously, you want to go to an optometrist to make sure it really isn't a reading problem, a visual problem, and you didn't need some people need regular glasses, and that's all it is. I know that my sister-in-law gave an example of, she was teaching art to a little girl who was really not able to manage any copying at all. At 5 years old, she couldn't make a circle, she couldn't make a square, and everybody was so worried about her. Turned out she needed very, very thick glasses. She had a very bad, very high prescription for a little girl, and nobody in the family even had glasses. But of course, that was one of the things they checked, thank God, and now she's, of course, an adult and married, but she became a very good student, and they thought that maybe she had learning disabilities or she wasn't going to cope. It was all a visual thing all along. Now, this is not a visual thing, but it does help vision better because it's a visual stress problem. So poor depth perception is one thing. A couple other things we'll talk about too. Some people see like this, and it's really blurry, or they have what they call a halo effect around every single letter, and they can go on like that for a long time, and people are thinking the kid doesn't have any intelligence because he's not able to read, and he might be seeing like this. And it's not his eyes. It's because the wavelengths are the wrong color for him, and the light on the page is hitting it in such a way that it's causing very bad visual stress. I want to just talk about a couple things before I say this. Okay, so the signs of Irlen syndrome are light sensitivity, as I mentioned, reading problems, headaches and migraines, attention and concentration problems, strain and fatigue, problems with depth perception, and print on environmental, like distorted print, as you saw before. So who is affected by Irlen syndrome anyway? So it can be anyone. It can be anyone affected. It can be present. It's present in many populations, including individuals identified with learning disabilities. So your child might actually have a learning disability, but why not take the stress away from him or her by making their vision so that much clearer and that much less strained? So you might find out that a child needs these Irlen lenses after being tested, but they also might have ADHD, or they might have dyslexia or autism even, or something like that. Again, too, a traumatic brain injury can cause this if it's in the back of the head, because that's where the visual cortex is. And so many gifted and highly successful individuals may have Irlen syndrome, and has no reflection at all on their intelligence, of course. So it's about 14% of the general population, and about 46% of people with reading or learning difficulties, including dyslexia. And about 33% of individuals with autism may have Irlen syndrome. So again, it's not going to cure your kid or your adult friend or your partner of ADHD or autism, but it will make their lives so much less stressful, by enabling them to read with much more calm and clarity and precision. So far, the causes of Irlen syndrome remain unknown, but it's believed that it originated on either in the retina or the visual cortex of the brain. Some colors are of wavelengths of light that kind of bounce off the wrong way. They're not developed back there as well as they should be. And so, of course, bright and fluorescent light is probably the worst offender of this kind of strain, of visual strain. And we all see this every day when we go to schools, shopping malls, synagogues, churches. I mean, everywhere you go, shopping centers, everything is usually fluorescent light. And that's the worst offender. And this is where people find it the most stressful. And even just the average person who doesn't have Irlen syndrome, I think, finds fluorescent light very, very stressful. Regular lights are not as bad. Natural light, of course, is the best. And people feel less stress. And when you have an Irlen test, as Shoshana will tell you, it's a lengthy test of maybe 2.5 hours. And they test you under different light conditions and different color overlays like this, the plastic overlay that will give you the best prescription, basically, for what you might need. It might be one color, it might be a combination of colors. So if your kid has reading difficulties or poor behavior, or has already been diagnosed with something, this is not going to be getting rid of their original problem, but it will make their lives so much less stressful. Adults, too, have been thanking Shoshana and the Irlen people for all over the world for just changing their lives. There's a lot of success stories with this. Um, so again, people who have reading distortions in particular is a red flag. If you can't track from line to line, if you're skipping words, if you're if your writing looks like it's jumping on the page, the letters, there's a red flag there. You have to have your child tested for vision and for Irlen. I would for sure. I tested my kids, and they didn't need it, and I thought they would because all my children have very mild learning disabilities and auditory processing stuff. They didn't need these glasses, but you can see here on this slide that when your light sensitive and your visual stress is at a maximum, and really it stresses out the rest of the body too. It causes abnormal brain function and headaches and tense neck and back. Small and gross motor integration is lessened. You're going to see a systemic impact, like the autonomic nervous system can be out of balance. The immune system is suppressed. The endocrine system is suppressed. Emotional behavioral problems happen. ADHD gets worse. Sleeping difficulties, and the list is very endless on how visual stress affects the whole body, not just the eyes. Again, when they look at children with ADHD and who do have Irlen syndrome, these kids already have reading difficulties and fatigue during doing visual tasks, and they have trouble holding attention. And when they have the Irlen lenses, they have greatly improved, and they're very successful in school. And I thought this was a very interesting fact that 70% of anxiety sufferers report having a light sensitivity. So people who have anxiety, and who doesn't these days? I have every other, I do acupuncture now. I'm a nurse. I would say every third person that walks in my office puts down anxiety as one of their issues, especially the young people, because there's so much going on in the world right now for them to deal with, whether they're raising children in this crazy world, or whether they're students, or people in their 20s and 30s. I mean, every other one I see practically has an anxiety situation, and we're living in a very stressful world, and then the light sensitivity makes it much, much worse. So who can we help? Or who can they help? I'd like to say we, because one day I'd like to learn how to diagnose this myself. It's extensive training. And by the way, you can get Irlen testing anywhere in the world. I live in Israel. There's a great woman in Israel that Shoshana will mention, in Jerusalem. She can test. There are people in every state in America, and every country pretty much in Europe, South Africa. So anybody with reading problems, anybody with medical conditions that like head injuries, where they had that changed their vision, brain injuries, autism spectrum disorders, light sensitivity people, veterans who have had a post-traumatic stress disorder. This can help them. It can help people with ADHD and people with headaches and more. So I wanted to show you, this is what the plastic overlays look like. They put them over a text, and then they help. Is it better with yellow? Is it better with orange? Is it better with green and yellow? Is it better with red? Is it better with, they look at what colors is good. And it's not just a simple test. They do a lot of very sophisticated stuff. So you need a 2.5 hour time. It's pretty expensive, I believe, too, but it's worth every penny or every shekel, because if you end up with glasses like these, it changes your life. I want to show you people who wear these. These are what the different examples of the different lens colors. And of course, then the children, I was reading a bit about how the kids may have to deal with being teased at school for wearing different color lenses. But, some people are already wearing sunglasses indoors anyway, and they're naturally protecting themselves because they can't tolerate the stress of the fluorescent lighting. And now also on the computer, when we talk about blue light, which isn't really blue, but it's what it's called on a computer, you can buy, I bought this for $10, a pair of glasses that helps protect my eyes from the visual stress of the computer screen and my phone. But this is for treating much greater problems than that, much greater visual stresses. This is a little girl wearing her lenses. And they say that it does run in families. So here's a picture that a whole family sent in, success story after success story with this family. The kids were failing in school. They weren't behaving properly. They thought all the kids couldn't manage or cope, or they didn't have much intelligence or something. And the family all one by one got tested. And most of them ended up with the lenses, and they're so happy, and they're very successful, every one of them. So just as a wrap up before we get to Shoshana, with Irlen syndrome, it's wise to get tested very early, especially if your kids or you yourself are not performing well at work or at school, poor behavior. Even if you have very high intelligence, it's a very important thing to try. So visual stress can cause so many problems, and like take dyslexia for example. People do not really It doesn't have to do with vision either, but that people with dyslexia do improve with Irlen glasses. And everybody has visual stress. So not everybody will have what they call Irlen syndrome. But just like everybody gets depressed, not everybody's diagnosed with depression either. So it behooves you to get checked out completely and really know where you stand with this. It's not poor eyesight in the eye. It's not a visual problem with the eyeball itself. It's a processing issue with your brain. And visual stress can cause problems all over the place. And of course, like I said, the worst being fluorescent. But you get these special filters on these Irlen glasses, and you'll be very, very successful. And again, just I wanted to give a brief little introduction before I bring Shoshana on. She's extremely qualified in this area. I want to tell you a bit about her. She's had over 35 years of experience as an educator, a consultant, a therapist, professional trainer. She's also an artist. She won't tell you that. She has presented hundreds of international continuing education programs throughout the years, presentations on a variety of topics related to special ed, accessibility, consulting, home modifications, as I mentioned, job site modification for handicapped. And then she moved into children, focusing on her children more with the Irlen syndrome. She was very interested in it, and so she got herself educated to be a diagnostician. So she doesn't any longer practice occupational therapy, but she has extensive special education. So if you have her to test your children, you have hit the jackpot, because she is so knowledgeable and she could give you so much recommendation on everything on your child, including the Irlen lenses and way more. As you can see at the bottom, her initials are extensive MS. She's a master's degree, occupational therapist, and an Irlen diagnostician. She's a brain gym instructor. I'm going to interview her on brain gym the next time, because brain gym is a fascinating exercise people can do to get their kids and get themselves to learn better by crossing the pathways of the brain, get them to cross and interact better. She's somewhat of a brain expert, to the point where she is cooperating with the Amen clinics, Dr. Amen, and she specializes in brain health with him and she collaborates with him on all kinds of projects. Okay, so Shoshana and I had a discussion going, and we got cut off. So I have to go to the second half of the recording, which is just as good and just as long. The first half was a little more getting to catch up on things that we were trying to catch up on, because we've been very dear friends for years, and we don't live in the same place anymore. So it's really fun to talk to each other. But again, last wrap up on the significance of improvement. You can see the improvements with the Irlen lenses. You can see all with music, with migraines. It helps everything: attention, concentration, light sensitivity, reading, especially sports, even driving. So you don't have to just be a student to go for these Irlen lenses. It can help you with every single aspect of your life and make it much easier and much less stressful. So let's listen about Shoshana. She'll tell us all about her part in the Irlen testing and what she believes, what she knows about it, and she's going to teach us now. Yeah. Okay, we got cut off so rudely by this machine, and now we're carrying on again with Shoshana Shamberg, occupational therapist and Irlen practitioner and diagnostician. Shoshana, we were talking about how it helps people with so many issues, and it makes you wonder if everybody shouldn't be tested. But why don't you like illuminate just like the really main reasons why somebody should really try to go for testing, and then I can tell your own story.
First, I'll tell you how it was discovered. It was discovered over 40 years ago by a woman named Helen Irlen, who is a psychologist and reading specialist. And she was a reading resource, not a teacher, but she was a reading resource practitioner for a community college in Long Beach, California, with adults with learning issues. And the only place that they had that she could go into to do her work with the students was in a theater. And she had read some research saying that color, like I guess it was one color, made a difference when you put it on top, like a clear plastic sheet of color. If you put it over the reading material, people seem to be able to read faster and more fluidly and more accurately with less tiredness. So all the people in her group had learning issues and were adults with long-term learning issues that were given the support.
40 years ago?
Over 40 years ago.
I mean, when did they even care about learning issues back then? That's amazing.
Yeah, the community college had, community college were traditionally where people with learning issues went.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they get into regular colleges because they didn't test well. They didn't, the SAT scores were very low. So community college was a way for people to test the waters of college without a big commitment. Plus, it was very low cost. In California, I think when I lived in California, it was free for community colleges. But anyway, so she back then the theaters had film that they would put over the lights for effect. They didn't have computerized lighting. Wow. So they film that they would, layer and then put over the lights, and it would be a theatrical effect. So she started cutting up this theater film, different colors, and she put it on the table, and she said, everybody pick a color that you like or that feels good, and just put it over your reading material and see if it helps you read any better. So she did it over a period of time, and people tended to pick the same color, but not everybody picked the same color. The people who chose, let's say Joe chose yellow after like the third trial, then the next week yellow, and the next week yellow. And she said, well, Joe, why are you picking yellow each week? You have 15 colors here. He said, well, I tried all your other colors, and the yellow really makes the letters clear and makes me feel less stress and strain, and I read better. I understand what I read better. I'm not straining to try to understand what I'm reading. So anyway, that's what happened. And she asked the head of the college if she could do a research study in this idea of using color and reading material to improve reading fluency, accuracy, and fatigue, like reading fatigue and attention and focus. So they did give her the ability to do that. And she published her results, which were very successful. And at the same exact time, a researcher in New Zealand named Dr. Mears, who was also a reading specialist, published the exact same research. They had no interest, they didn't know about each other, but it just came out. So if you look in Wikipedia, it's Irlen-Mears syndrome. So that's how it started out. And Helen, she's a curious woman. She's a genius, and she's always trying to find a better solution. So she was reading about the military had done research in the early part of the 1900s for snipers to improve their vision, because there's a lot of distortion in heat environments or in jungle environment where you have a lot of distraction, plus you have heat waves and you have depth perception issues. So, and a lot of it is glare sensitivity and visual distortions from the way that light is hitting certain objects in the distance. So the goal of the military was to create super sharpshooters, okay, who had supervision, really good vision, and they had precision depth perception and, length of shooting and, velocity and this. Anyway, so they came up with, I think, the yellow and the orange glasses that you see now with skiers and hunters and people who are and also for computer use, some people use yellow and orange glasses, and some people use them for driving because they eliminate glare. So that's where they stopped the research. So she said, well, why don't I take this research further? Because I'm working with color. So she found an optician named Harvey Wells who was willing to work with her. And Harvey and Helen developed I think there's about 140 different colors of lenses, different densities and colors. And then there's combinations. So there's tens of thousands of colors that we have available to us by the testing process. And what we're looking for in the testing is what makes your vision, okay, when you look at an eye chart or you look at a reading material, or you just feel in your body more relaxed and less fatigued, okay? And usually people can know their stress symptoms. So I'm using those stress symptoms to have them gauge when something is better and not. And I go through an awareness part of the testing session in the beginning so that they know what I'm looking for. I don't want them to focus on reading because many people come to me don't have reading problems. So I really want them to focus on how they feel relaxed, stressed. Get really aware of what the stresses are. And I have different lighting situations, different intensities of lighting. The last thing I do is put on fluorescent lighting because that's the worst. So if your audience is working or their child is learning or they're learning under fluorescent lighting, that may be a big problem in terms of if they do experience attention and focus problems, or if they do experience feeling uncomfortable in their bodies and they have to move around a lot. People attribute that with ADD, ADHD. So, and also visual distortions. So when your eyes are not working together and your brain is not sending messages fluidly to the eyes and your awareness in other parts of the brain, auditory, vestibular, different parts of your body, fine motor, gross motor, then you're not going to function at your best. Okay. And this is really not to give anybody skills. It's so that they can relax, so they can attain skills that they didn't have, or use the skills they have, but use them more efficiently.
So do you say that sometimes, I just want to ask a question if I can.
Sure.
Thanks. The kids with ADHD, let's say, or kids with autism, or any adults, anybody who has learning disabilities or, distorted vision. I mean, this is caused by sensitivities to light in many cases.
Well, on my website, there's a 7-page sensory symptom checklist. All of those, the 7 pages, there's hundreds of symptoms. They can all be related in a profile. Okay, it's it would be like a puzzle, like I'm looking for patterns in those symptoms. And if I think that the person, I've turned many people away. I said, Irlen's not your issue. I can tell by that checklist whether they should even be screened. So that's and that's free. I do that on the phone. I do that on the internet, and I look at those patterns. The screening takes about an hour and a half, and it can be done virtually. I can test you so you can see what it's like when you have time. And it's fascinating because stuff pulls up in that screening that people were not aware of. And some of these people are, 60 or 70 years old. So they have these issues most of their life, or they acquired them through things like Lyme disease, which can attack the visual system, MS, Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury, and concussion, car accident. If you have a car accident, you have whiplash. Likelihood is that your visual system will be affected because that's back here, right where your neck meets your skull. A stroke. There's so many. I have a list of all the disabilities that we have worked with. And
improves the vision. I just want to clarify. It doesn't improve the vision, obviously, because it's not optometry. It's not like prescription lenses. But
no, it seems like it improves vision because it takes away the distortions.
Okay.
Eye doctors think it's acuity. Okay, or they tell the person it's not your eyes. And they're like, wait a minute, I can't see the letters. They're jumping around. They're moving. They're getting bigger and smaller. They're doubling up. They're blurry. What, you're telling me it's not my eyes? And they're like, no. And sometimes they give what we call relaxation lenses, which make magnified very slightly. So you see the distortions, but it's easier to see the letters if there's white spaces in between them, or there's spaces in between them. So that's where I get a lot of people coming to me like, oh, I went to 5 different eye doctors and told them my eyes were, I see blurry. And they give me all these different glasses and none of them work. That's a real key for me. Or a parent comes in with a kid who, the doctor gave them these 0.5 or 0.75 glasses, but the kid does not like wearing the glasses because it doesn't feel good. It's not the right glasses. It's just all the doctor had to offer. Okay. So, also vision therapy is very expensive. People go 2 to 3 times a week. I was a vision therapist. I worked in an eye doctor's office. I know OTs do, vision therapy quite often. If you do this first and this is your issue, that vision therapy will be a lot less costly, or you may not need it at all. I mean, I have parents being very angry that they didn't get tested first, that the eye doctor didn't say, first test for Irlen and then come to me for vision therapy if you still need vision therapy. Because you can test after you're wearing the lenses, you can test to see if those visual motor and those convergence insufficiency issues are still there. Okay, so if they're gone, you know it wasn't purely a muscular and a motor issue. So that's the beauty of it. Now, I don't say you don't need vision therapy. That's up to a doctor to say that, and up to you, the client, to say whether it's worth it. But quite often that happens, and it happens too often. It also happens too often that kids are in tutoring for years for reading and math and music, reading music score. And really it was Irlen, and they could have gotten it taken care of and got the skills much earlier with a lot less effort and a lot less cost for the parent if they're paying out of pocket for all those services. Even OT, I've had, I'm a handwriting specialist, and I taught all over the country, all over other professionals how to do handwriting intervention. So I'm pretty much of an expert in this. And once I found out about Irlen, which was pretty far into my career, I could put a specific color paper with, certain lines on the paper, and just by changing the color of the background for writing, improved writing. Now with the lenses, sometimes it took care of the writing issue plus the spelling issue, because their brain was so tired they weren't spelling correctly, but they knew how to spell. So anyway, it's fascinating.
What about behavior issues? How does this affect the behavior issues?
Because you're calmer. When you're calmer, you don't have such a short fuse. When you feel good about yourself and good in your body, most behavior issues are, kid is not lazy. It just drives me nuts when kids come in, parents come in with kids and say, the teacher said my child's lazy. There's no such thing as a lazy kid. It's a kid who's stressed, okay? And they can't function. They get tired, or they don't want to because it's too painful. It's too stressful. So how do we release some of that? Through brain gym is another technique that I use, and I've used it for over 30 years. But the Irlen method is immediate. It's so fast. I mean, you see it in the session. If you don't get results in one session, they don't order the technology. I mean, there's no further use for me. So I don't want people spending money on the diagnostic testing, which takes 3 hours, unless they've been screened, because the screening will tell you whether it's worth it to come.
Now, do they do this kind of screening worldwide, widespread? I mean, is this something?
Now it's virtual. I've seen people.
No, but are the schools aware of this? Are the doctor's offices aware of this? When people come in with their kids and say,
I can honestly say that I personally have educated tens of thousands of people, both medical professionals and educators and parents. I did a lot of support group. Nurses. I've had many nurses come to my courses, physical therapists, OTs, speech therapists. I can only do so much. Helen Irlen does webinars. So if you look on the internet, there's tons of webinars that she's done. She speaks at national conferences. I've spoken at national conferences to hundreds of people on this topic. But it has to, there's no advertising. There's no campaigns. Irlen Institute does not pay for advertising. So everything is done word of mouth. That's a very difficult, that's why we appreciate people like you who are educating other people, because that's how that's how we get known. Right. And the other way that people find us is they get so frustrated with their symptoms. They put their symptoms in the internet, and then all of a sudden Irlen Institute comes up, and we're all listed. The worldwide network is listed by country and then by state in America. So we're all listed on the Irlen.com website, and I get referrals from that website. And a lot of the doctors I work with, once they see success of their clients, it's fantastic. I have doctors who refer all the time, especially for the migraine client. Because once you have light sensitivity, the doctors can only give you so much medication. I mean, I get people who are addicted to, painkillers to me, and they get off those painkillers because they don't have to take them as much, because the lenses will decrease the amount of migraines and sometimes take it away completely without drugs. But Helen Irlen, she's a reading specialist, but she realized that this is way bigger. So she works a lot with Dr. Daniel Amen, because they've been working with each other for 30 years. And Dr. Amen is a passionate advocate for Irlen method and Irlen testing. And he actually has let us use some brain scans of Irlen clients. So one of them is on my website, but he speaks about it and really recommends a lot of clients to get tested. And it's only 2 sessions. So it's like simple, get it out of the way. Temple Grandin, who's one of the most famous people with Dr. Temple Grandin with autism in the world, says every person with autism should be tested, get it out of the way. If it's not your issue, you'll know in 1 session. If it is your issue, get it taken care of. Because so many people with autism have light sensitivity and sensory issues. There's a book called Like Color to the Blind, written by Donna Williams, who had severe autism and was an artist and musician and writer. So she's one of the Irlen clients who was helped as an adult, but she could have gotten it as a kid. Temple Grandin does not have Irlen syndrome. So she is one of the lucky ones. She has tactile issues. She has her sensory system that's overloaded. That's why she has that squeeze box that she invented.
Right.
So
that's fascinating. And I really hope that people can understand that this is an option for them to test their children, especially. I know I don't mean to exclude adults, but I know that people are constantly searching for, ways to help their children succeed in school or succeed in reading or help them with their behavior or anything.
I have parents coming to me and their kids getting help saying it should be a criminal offense that teachers and tutors do not know about this.
Exactly. I'm thinking too.
Every teacher
that should be the school system should be just doing this automatically, like they test for hearing and vision, like basic stuff like that. Like Irlen,
Every school can have a Irlen screener on staff. I do a training program. It's 15 hours. You do 10 screenings for free. You just screen anybody. You don't worry if they're Irlen or not, and you're done. You're trained. You can implement it in any educational setting, any medical clinic, especially a traumatic brain injury clinic, migraine clinic, headache clinic.
Where do you get the glasses from? Is there one location where the glasses come from?
There's only 4 labs in the world. The main one is in Long Beach, California. The other one is in Australia. The other one in New Zealand and in South Africa. So there's only 4. There used to be one in England. That one is, I don't know why it's no longer, but so all the practitioners all over the world have to send the glasses or order the glasses, and you can order uncut lenses. Like Shuki in Israel, she'll order the uncut lenses and then have a local optician cut them to the frame. Okay, so you don't have to send your glasses if you don't want to, which is a long process and adds a lot more expense to another continent. You can just order, the practitioner can order bifocals, progressives, plano lenses, no prescription. We also tint special contacts, so it can be no prescription contacts or
you can contacts.
Special process. It takes 90 days, so it's not. The glasses are much quicker. But I see a lot of performers, actors and musicians who are performing on stage, and the light is excruciating, and often they can't wear sunglasses on stage, which helps a little bit, doesn't help everything. So they'll get the contacts, so there's no glare from the lights on stage. And also the contacts are better because if you can wear contacts, and they're not the daily wear, unfortunately, they tint it, the whole pupil is tinted, and you don't know that you're wearing the lenses, because some people will come up to me when I wear my lenses, and I don't see if I have them. And when I wear my lenses, they'll come up to me. I wear them at night, and they'll say, "Why are you wearing sunglasses, purple lenses at night?" And I said, "Because I don't see the purple, and they're not dark for me. I see daylight, but they help me with my stress." And I don't know if you remember when I almost got hit by a car in Israel. Do you remember that?
I do. You step off the curb or something, right?
No, I was running across I was stupid running across the highway in Jerusalem, and I smashed my head, and I probably had a brain injury. I probably had an injury, but I didn't want to go to the hospital because my grandson was getting bar mitzvah, and I didn't want to cause any. So I wore these the whole time. Okay, now I don't see dark. I barely see the purple. It goes away. But they just calm my whole system down. So when I had that brain injury, which I didn't know it was brain injury until I realized when these things helped, that I really did something that I shouldn't have done, which was smash my head on the concrete, that this was helping me to heal. So I wore these the whole time.
So tell us, before we sign off, I want you to tell us your own story. You said, how did you discover you yourself had the Irlen syndrome?
Oh, I went to training, and I owe it to my students. I worked in a public school. I owe it to my students to learn about this because I see all kids with learning issues, right? So I went to the training in Virginia, and I walk in, and there's 20 people in the training, and most of them had colored lenses. So I thought, I must be in the wrong training because these are consumers. They're not professionals. So we all introduced ourselves. Everybody was, nurse, social worker, psychologist. I was the only OT, speech therapist. I mean, everybody had a, pretty high, some of them doctorate degrees. So I was curious. So at break time, I went around to a couple of them and I said, why are you here? Why are you wearing colored lenses? They were oh my gosh, Shoshana, you're in the right place. This is amazing. I had migraines for 20 years. This took it away. And then another person, I have a child with dyslexia. It cost me a fortune in tutoring. The kid gets his lenses and gets tested, gets the lenses, and he goes up 3 grade levels in one day. Why didn't the tutor know about this? And then I had it because it tends to run in families if you have a genetic issue. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've seen 3 generations, and then we traced it back to a 4th generation. And everybody can manifest it differently. One person, it could be migraines. The next person, it could be a dyslexia. Another person could be, I just wore sunglasses all the time. The grandma who came, I wear sunglasses all the time. What's the big deal? I'm like, well, there's a reason why you wear sunglasses all the time. Well, if I take them off, I get all stressed out and I have a short fuse. So everybody has their manifestation of their stress-related issues. The one that comes up the most is the migraine and the learning issues.
So you recommend people with migraines go be tested just to like you said, just to get it over with to see if that's it, because it's an easy thing to do.
And autism. I don't do nonverbal autism. Helen Irlen does test and supervises us to do nonverbal autism. I don't have the space for it because you have to do it on the floor and you're doing it with the parent and you have to set it up. There's a lot of preparation. But I've seen many, many, many people with high level autism, what do they call Asperger's, EDD. So, and have gotten incredible help. So, and I have one testimonial of a parent who had 2 kids with autism who changed their lives. They were in high school. And, I still see them every year. So people come back every year, like an eye exam, to test their tint. If they're local, people drive from 6 hours away. I see people from Pittsburgh, from Richmond, Virginia, from New York City. So we need more practitioners. So if your audience, if anybody wants to be a practitioner, as you said, people don't know about it. The more practitioners we have, and you wouldn't want to do it as a sole business, you add it to an existing practice like I did. And so my whole business, until I retired from OT, was not a Irlen. Now it's all Irlen. And I don't do OT. But it's fascinating. I love it. I've been doing it 20 years and I never get tired of it. It's just so much fun. And to see the immediate results. With OT, I didn't see the immediate.
Right, that's very gratifying. Shoshana Shamberg, thank you for joining us from Baltimore and telling us all about Irlen lenses and syndrome and your story and where we can. I'm going to post your website. Yeah.
One more thing, sure. I forgot the boy who had the migraines.
Yes.
The one that I was watching.
Yeah.
Before I did the training, I did not believe that it was. This is weird. So the woman said to me, who was testing, she said, if you agree to educate others, I will send you a package from Chicago to Baltimore of videos and books and overlays. And I was like, really? You would send that to a stranger? She goes, I feel so passionately because my son was almost kicked out of yeshiva and had to go to public school in special ed because they said he had a major learning issue. And with these lenses, within 1 week, he was above grade level in reading after struggling, and he was 13 years old. So she had her own experience. My friend's son, I called up 2 weeks later. I said, what happened with those overlays? She said, it's amazing. Half the migraines. He's feeling so much better about himself. We're going to get the lenses.
That's incredible. That's just really brilliant. And I bless you with further success in helping lots and lots of people, the thousands of people that you've helped, to get more people trained. This is a very important thing that you're doing.
Oh, to be trained. I'm 70 years old. I'm at the other end. We need more young people in this network to be trained.
More young people encouraged. Okay, I really appreciate you taking your amazingly precious time to be with me today, and I'm going to share this to the world on my Wellness Wednesday webinar. And thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
It was a lot. Bye-bye.